Omegana Timrandasya
Recording in progress.
Lakaya Saksur Anmilitan Me Niena Tasmai Sigovena Namo Vishnu Padai Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Mi Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarani. So, yesterday we heard and the day before about how the Yadus, the Vishnus, and the residents of Vrindavan, how they all met at Kurukshetra at the occasion of the solar eclipse. And we heard about how Krishna met with Nanda Maharaj and the mother Yasoda and with the gopis. Today we will hear further what happened at Kurukshetra at that time. At that time, well, this chapter 83 is about Draupadi. Draupadi is the wife of the Pandavas, and she's meeting with 9 wives of Krishna. 9 wives of Krishna from Dvarka. Of course, we heard that Krishna had 16,108 wives. But Rohini, she will be the representative of the 16,100 other wives. So we are going to meet first with the 8 primary wives of Krishna. Of course, we will hear in the purport, because each wife will tell how they were either kidnapped or how they came in contact with Krishna. And they will tell their story. But Srila Prabhupada writes the details of the story also in the, well, it's not Srila Prabhupada, the BBT translators, they write again the whole story in the purport, but we heard the stories already before in previous chapters. This is not new. So we are going to meet with these 8 primary wives of Krishna. Now what's special here is that we will get a glimpse of the heart of the queens. When you have 16,108 queens and you have to examine each of them, their hearts will be impossible. So this is basically what we are going to do here. Then we will find about the mood of each and the expressions of each of these queens. We will find some common elements and some uncommon elements. We will hear their uncommon individual stories, how they came to Krishna consciousness. We have already heard the stories of the queens in one chapter, and the story of Rukmini in chapter 54. So we see that in the story of every queen, there will be a common element. So while we go to this chapter, please be attentive to that. What is a common element? So while reading the verses, I would request therefore everyone to find the common and the very uncommon element. It is uncommon for everyone in this world to have it. But in this world, if we want to have any relationship with the Lord, we will need to acquire that uncommon element. The first of the 83 third chapter goes back into the 82nd chapter. So we are going back with verse 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Shishuka Vacha Tanu Tahanuheya Bhagavan Gopinam Sagokatihi Yudhistiram Mata Pichat Sarvam Sansurido Vayam. Sukadev Goswami said, thus Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the gopis, and the very purpose of their life showed them is mercy. He then met with Yudhishthir and all his other relatives and inquired from them about their welfare. So, can someone read the purport of this first verse, please?
Words Guru Gati He have been translated here in their usual sense, spiritual master and goal. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, however, points out an additional meaning. While Lord Krishna is the goal for all sadhus in general, for the gopis specifically, he is that goal which is Guru, predominant, in the sense of completely eclipsing the significance of all other possible goals.
So this is the speciality and the nature of the gopis' relationship with Krishna. They want to be with him in a mood of service. They wanted to serve him, which eclipses all other goals, all other desires. It removes all other thoughts. They know nothing but Krishna. This is a wonderful insight given here by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We will read this commentary now directly. It's here on the screen. Someone can read the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Yes, ma'am. In the 83rd chapter, Krishna is praised by his friends. On inquiry from Draupadi, the queens of Krishna describe how he married them. Just as Krishna satisfied the gopis, so Krishna, he was merciful to others. He inquired from Yudhishthira and all his other friends concerning their welfare or auspiciousness. He is the goal of all devotees, but he is the greatest object of love for the gopis, Guru Gati.
Hare Krishna. So now we will begin with text 2. Text 2. Feeling greatly honored, King Yudhishthira and the others, freed from all reactions by seeing the feet of the Lord of the universe, gladly answered his inquiries. So, what is the inquiry? It's about his welfare. Now, interesting is, what is the sequence, the order of events that brings us here to Kurukshetra? And what happened after that? Jiva Goswami, he gives an order of events. And first he says, Balaram went to Vrindavan. And then Vivida gorilla was killed. And after that, then the solar eclipse took place. That's where we are now. The solar eclipse took place and we had a meeting at Kurukshetra. And then Nanda Maharaj returns to Vraj. So I sent yesterday a recording wherein it's explained what happened before Nanda returns to Vraj. That we heard that he delayed it for many months. And then Uddhav gives advice after that. And then after that, King Jarasandha is killed. And then the Rajasuya sacrifice happens. Then there is the destruction of Salva, and then Krishna leaves. This is an order of events according to Jiva Goswami. Now, Yudhishthir is going to reply in 2 verses. The question is simply, how are you? And Yudhishthir replies in text 3, O Master, how can misfortune arise for those who have even once freely drunk the nectar coming from your lotus feet? This intoxicating liquor pours into the drinking cups of their ears, having flowed from the minds of great devotees through their mouths. It destroys the embodied soul's forgetfulness of the Creator of their bodily existence. Drinking the nectar coming from your lotus feet. So, in these two verses of Yudhishthira Maharaj, they tell us about the art of Krishna consciousness. What's the art of life? It will also be revealed by the queens, by their common experience. Text 4. So at the end of text 3 says, yes, who is the creator of their bodily existence? The ultimate creator is Krishna, text 4. The radiance of your personal form dispels the threefold effects of material consciousness, and by your grace we become immersed in total happiness. Your knowledge is indivisible and unrestricted. By your Yoga Maya potency you have assumed this human form for protecting the Vedas, which had been threatened by time. We bow down to you, the final destination of perfect saints. Can someone read the purport, please?
Simply by the effulgent light emanating from the beautiful form of the Lord, Krishna, one's intelligence is purified of all material contamination, and thus the soul's various entanglements in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are dispelled. How then, the Lord's relatives imply, can we ever suffer misfortune? We are always immersed in the absolute happiness. This is their answer to his inquiry about their welfare.
So what does...
Shall I continue, Maharaj?
No. What does that mean? They are always thinking of him. Thank you for reading. They are always thinking of him. There is nothing that they see that is separated from Krishna. Why did ultimately the gopis reject this Atma Jnana we heard before? This is the knowledge which Krishna mentioned in his message which Uddhav delivered in Nandagram. He expressed it to the gopis here in Kurukshetra, how there is nothing separate from Krishna. So that type of consciousness for the gopis is not what they want. Why? Because they say that this seeing Krishna everywhere, instead of satisfying them, it causes them to plunge in an ocean of feelings of separation even more. It is Krishna, but it is not in the same way they want Krishna. The form in which they want to embrace him, in Braj, it causes them more difficulty, because it causes them to miss Krishna even more. This type of consciousness, this Atma Jnana, is not what the gopis are longing for, but it is still beneficial for us. We want to see him in all things and all places. We want to see him in the form of his holy books, his pastimes, his name, but in every circumstance, and that is Krishna consciousness. As Srila Prabhupada said, that if Krishna is a taste of water, and if every time we drink water, then including the other ways as Krishna includes in Bhagavad Gita and Uddhav Gita about how to see him, then we will always be thinking of Krishna. So now we go back to 3. And now if someone can read here the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, verse 3.
What can be inauspicious for those whose material bodies, who drink through their ears the nectar of your lotus feet, which flows from the minds of the great devotees, Mahamanastha, out through their mouths, and destroyed that ignorance which produced our bodies.
And now Vishwanath's commentary on verse 4, if someone can read that, it's on the screen.
Certainly we have surrendered to you, who destroys the jivas, 3 modes of nature composed of ignorance, by the manifestation of your spiritual form. How could there be anything inauspicious for us? You cause our submersion in bliss. In other words, more than destroying ignorance, we are submerged in bliss just by seeing you. We have knowledge, Bodham, completely unaffected by time or other elements. Thus you know the inclination of our hearts and complete surrender to you. You have accepted Atar pastimes, Kriti, of destroying the demons and protecting the devotees of Yogamaya for the purpose of maintaining Avana, the rules outlined in the Vedas, Nigama, which are destroyed by time. In other words, you give happiness to everyone.
So, destroying the influence of material nature is extremely beneficial for us, but for the gopis it plunges them in feelings of separation from Krishna. Text 5. The great sage Sukadeva Goswami said, as Yudhishthira and the others were thus praising Lord Krishna, the crest jewel of all sublimely glorified personalities, the women of the Andaka and the Kaurava clans met with one another and began discussing topics about Govinda that are sung throughout the 3 worlds. Please listen as I relate to you. So we have just heard how misfortune cannot come to one who hears the nectar coming from your lotus feet. And how does one get it? We can hear from the great devotees. This destroys material existence. What great devotees are we going to hear from here? Because of the mercy of Sukadeva Goswami, Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, we are going to be allowed to listen to a conversation between the queens of Krishna, such intimate loving servitors of Krishna. They met with each other and they began to discuss topics about Govinda, which were sung in the 3 worlds. So everyone was hearing these topics that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, I now describe to you those topics which they discussed, which are sung throughout the 3 worlds, that we will hear now. Text 6. First is Draupadi, because it's a conversation between Draupadi and all these queens. And Draupadi said, O Vaidarbhi, Bhadra, and Jambavati, O Kausala, Satyabhama, and Kalindi, O Saibya, Rohini, Lakshmana, and other wives of Lord Krishna. Please tell me how the Supreme Lord Asyuta, imitating the ways of this world by his mystic power, came to marry each of you. So she asked the queens, the 8 principal queens, who is missing? Someone can say who is missing? It's not everyone. No. It's Satya is missing. And Mitravinda is also missing. So Rukmini is going to answer, and the answers aren't surprising because we have already heard about the different marriages early in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But let's listen carefully. It is in the purport that's important. The Rohini addressed here by Draupadi is not Lord Balaram's mother, but another Rohini, the foremost of the 16,000 princesses Lord Krishna rescued from the prison of Bhamasur. So that's the principal queen representing all the other thousand of princesses. So Draupadi turns to her as she as the representative of all 16,000 and as a virtual equal to Sri Krishna's 8 chief queens. Text 7. Text 8, I mean. Sri Rukmini said, when all the kings held their bows at the ready to assure that I would be presented to Shishupal, he who puts the dust of his feet on the heads of invincible warriors took me from their midst as a lion forcibly takes his prey from the midst of goats and sheep. May I always be allowed to worship those feet of Lord Krishna, the abode of the goddess Shri. So now we are hearing for the first time from Rukmini herself describing what happened. So especially the last line of what she said, I would like to give full attention to this line. May I always be allowed to worship those feet of Lord Krishna, the abode of goddess Shri. So what is the consciousness of these queens that allows them to be so intimately connected with Krishna? This is a prayer in itself. Now Satyabhama will answer. Text 9. Satyabhama said, my father is hard tormented by his brother's death, accused Krishna of killing him. To remove the stain on his reputation, the Lord defeated the king of the bears and took back the Syamantaka jewel, which he then returned to my father. Fearing the consequences of his offense, my father offered me to the Lord, even though I had already been promised to others. So she has been offered. What does it mean to be offered to another? Is she happy? Is she satisfied or dissatisfied being offered to Krishna for his pleasure? Being put under Krishna's control. Yes, she wants to be offered to Krishna, of course. This is a natural consciousness of every living entity, and it is completely counter to having a false ego. False ego makes us experience existence as we are the center. We are the controllers and the enjoyers. Ishvara Mahambhogi. But here it is about I'm Krishna's. He can do with me what he likes. I've no rights. I'm so tiny and insignificant. Can someone read this purport, please? Only the purport. Yeah.
As described in chapter 56 of this canto, King Satyajit had already compromised himself by promising his daughter's hand first to Akrura and then again to a number of other suitors. But after the return of the Samantaka jewel, he felt impelled by his shame to offer her to Lord Krishna instead. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the word prabhave unto the Lord answers any doubt as to the propriety of offering Krishna a bride who had already been promised to others. It is perfectly proper to offer him everything one owns, and improper to withhold anything from him.
Thank you. I may think that it is not proper to offer to Krishna what already has been offered. It is actually an offense. So how can I offer my contaminated being or anything I have? And Sridhar Swami, here, he says that everything is actually meant for him. Maintaining a consciousness that it is meant for someone else is impropriety. Offer it back with great devotion to whom I truly belongs, because he is the Lord. So Satyaraj, even though he was the father of Krishna's wives, yes, that Satyaraj, yeah, sorry, there's something in my notes. But they had such a relationship with Krishna that, but we see, what I want to say is Satyaraj, he was the father of Krishna's wife here, Satyabhama, but he allowed him to be killed. That's interesting. Text. Now we will hear from number 3. Queen number 3 is Shambhavati. Text 10. Sri Shambhavati said, unaware that Lord Krishna was none other than his own master and worshipful deity, the husband of the goddess Sita, my father fought with him for 27 days. When my father finally came to his senses and recognized the Lord, he took hold of his feet and presented him with both me and the Syamantaka jewel as tokens of his reverence. I am simply the Lord's maidservant. So although the daughter of the powerful Jambavati, she was thinking herself as the Lord's maidservant, she says. Can someone read the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is on the screen?
Not knowing that Krishna was his own master and the Supreme Lord, my father, Dehakrit, fought with him for 27 days. 3 Navahani for 3 Navahani is short to comply with the rules of meters. Then, recognizing that he was the husband of Sita, he touched his feet and offered me along with the jewel to Krishna. Oh, then now we remember that you were born during Rama's appearance and promised to him, but they refused because he had taken a vow of only one wife. Now you have been accepted as wife by Krishna, who has many wives. Therefore, you are the best. Hearing this, Jambavati became embarrassed and said, I am only his servant.
So we have it again here at the end. I am only Krishna's servant. This we find in chapter 56 of the 10th canto. So next is Kalindi. We hear from Kalindi. She, Kalindi, said, the Lord knew I was performing severe austerities and penances with the hope of one day touching his lotus feet. So he came to me in the company of his friend and took my hand in marriage. Now I'm engaged as a sweeper in his palace. So what a consciousness. They are queens. They are living in palaces. They are controlling Krishna, and Krishna loves them. So they are completely in the consciousness of being a servant, a sweeper in his palace. So their consciousness is completely absorbed in Krishna. So next is Mitravinda. Shri Mitravinda said, at my Swayamsvar ceremony, he came forward, defeated all the kings present, including my brothers who dared insult him, and took away, just as a lion removes his prey from amidst a pack of dogs. Thus Lord Krishna, the shelter of the goddess of fortune, brought me to his capital city. May I allow to serve him by washing his lotus feet life after life. So what is our desire? May I be allowed to serve him by washing his feet life after life. So she was from Avanti. Avanti is Ujjain. And I've been in Ujjain, and I visited there a temple. And the temple is a temple of Radha. This is a temple of Mitravinda Krishna. And if everything goes right, then I will try to show you a picture of the deities there, that we can see Mitravinda. Yes, here it is. So that is Mitravinda from Ujjain, Avanti, and she was promised to Duryodhana, but Krishna kidnapped her. So that's a very small temple in Ujjain. Nobody practically knows where it is. We had to search to find it. And beautiful deities. It was 4 p.m. in the afternoon. You see the sun is going to set. And it was a very, very nice maintained temple. Yeah, very nice. But nobody was there. It was only a pujari. Hare Krishna. That is Mitravinda. We go back to Satya is the next. This is text 13 and 14, Satya speaking. My father arranged for 7 extremely powerful and vigorous bulls with deadly sharp horns to test the prowess of the kings who desired my hand in marriage. Although these bulls destroyed the false pride of many heroes, Lord Krishna subdued them effortlessly, tying them up in the same way children playfully tie up a goat's kids. He thus purchased me with his valor. He took me away with my maidservants and a full army of 4 divisions, defeating all the kings who opposed him along the road. May I be granted the privilege of serving that Lord. So Lord Krishna expanded himself in 7 forms to deal very quickly with these bulls. Text 15, 16. Now Shibhadra. Shibhadra said, "My dear Draupadi, of his own free will my father invited his nephew Krishna, to whom I had already dedicated my heart, and offered me to him as his bride. My father presented me to the Lord with an Aksaini military guard and a retinue of my female companions. My ultimate perfection is this, to be always allowed to touch Lord Krishna's lotus feet as I wander from life to life, bound by my karma. So, can someone read the purport which is on the screen, please?
With the word Atmana, Queen Bhadra speaks not only for herself, but for all living entities as well. The soul's perfection, Sreya Atmanaha, is devotional service to Lord Krishna, both in this world and beyond, in liberation. Srila Jiva Goswami comments that although in civilized society, it is normally considered disrespectful to publicly speak the name of one's guru or husband, Lord Krishna's name is unique. The mere utterance of the name Krishna is commendable as the highest expression of reverence for God. As the Svetashvatara Upanishad 4:19 states, Yasya Nama Mahat Yasaha, the holy name of the Lord is supremely glorious.
So one time during the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Vallabha Bhatta, he tried to establish himself as an authority because he was an incredible great scholar. Even the Vallabhas accept him as an incarnation of Agnidev. But he did not do so well in the midst of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was trying Mahaprabhu to hear his explanation, which is a book of the different names of Krishna. But Mahaprabhu refused to hear, saying that I know only 2 names of Krishna, and that's sufficient. Shyama Sundar and Yashodanandan. That is sufficient, and Vallabhacharya was refused, rebuffed. He came forward again, saying that it is improper if we are all Prakriti in relation to Krishna, and thus all female, and Krishna is the only male, that we are all as Krishna's wives. And Krishna is all our husband, all living entities. It is improper for the wife to pronounce the name of the husband. Therefore, he concluded that it is improper for us to chant and speak the name of Krishna. And Mahaprabhu said, the real principle of religion is that a wife must follow the order of the husband. That is her first duty. And the order of her husband, of Krishna, is to chant his holy names. Then he sent him away and embarrassed him in that way. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 8, and Jiva Goswami comments, although it is disrespectful, Krishna's name is unique, and the order of Krishna is to chant his names. So the Svetashvatara Upanishad says, the holy name of the Lord is supremely glorious. So Bhadra asked only to touch Lord Krishna's lotus feet birth after birth. She's even not asking for liberation. Now text 17. Shri Lakshmana said, O Queen, I repeatedly heard Narada Muni glorify the appearance and activities of Achyuta, and thus my heart also became attached to that Lord Mukunda. Indeed, even goddess Padmahasta chose him as her husband after careful consideration, rejecting the demigods who rule various planets. So this occurred when the ocean of milk was churned, and she wanted someone who is perfect. Of course, everyone wants to marry with or hook up with fortune, but fortune favors those who are perfect. She went over the demigods and found them all imperfect. But when she came to Lord Vishnu, she placed her garland over his neck. The only person to serve constantly without being flickering, chanchala, in her attention. Otherwise, due to everyone's imperfections, then she comes and goes, chanchala, constantly coming and going. That. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, my heart was attached to Mukunda. He was chosen, Vritta, by me, holding a lotus in my hand, and I had refused the protectors of the directions as my husband. So she will continue with our story till 39. So we will hear her story and some of the purports. So I will read the verses and someone else can read the purport if needed. 18. My father, Bhiratsena, was by nature compassionate to his daughter, and knowing how I felt, O saintly lady arranged to fulfill my desire. Just as a fish was used as a target in your Swayamvar ceremony, O queen, to assure that you would obtain Arjun as your husband, so a fish was also used in my ceremony. In my case, however, it was concealed on all sides, and only its reflection could be seen in a pot below. Can someone read the purport?
Arjuna is famous as the most expert bowman. Why then could he not hit the fish target at Srimati Lakshmana's Swayamvar ceremony, just as he had done once before to win Draupadi? Srila Sridhar Swami explains, the targeted Draupadi's Swayamvar had been covered only partially, so that a marksman could see it if he looked straight up the pillar on which it was placed. To shoot Lakshmana's target, however, it was necessary to aim by looking up and down at the same time, an impossible feat for any mortal. Therefore, only Krishna could strike the target.
So, it was Krishna's arrangement that 2021. Hearing of this, thousands of kings expert in shooting arrows and in wielding other weapons converged from all directions on my father's city, accompanied by their military teachers. My father probably honored each king, and according to his strength and seniority. Then those whose minds were fixed on me took up the bow and arrow, and one by one tried to pierce the target in the midst of the assembly. So if someone can read a one-line purport.
According to the Acharyas, only those kings who were extremely intent on winning the hand of the princess even dared try to shoot the target.
Text 22. Some of them picked up the bow but could not string it, and so they threw it aside in frustration. Some managed to pull the bowstring toward the tip of the bow, only to have the bow spring back and knock them on the ground. 23. A few heroes, namely Jarasandha, Shishupal, Bhima, Duryodhana, Karna, and the king of Ambasta, succeeded in stringing the bow, but none of them could find the target. Then Arjuna looked at the reflection of the fish in the water and determined its position. When he carefully shot his arrow at it, however, it did not pierce the target, but merely grazed it. That someone read the purport?
According to the explanation of Srila Sridhar Swami, Arjuna was more expert a marksman than the other kings, but his physical strength was not adequate to the task of shooting it with perfect accuracy.
Hare Krishna. Text 25-26. After all the arrogant kings had given up their pride broken, the Supreme Personality of Godhead picked up the bow, easily strung it, and then fixed his arrow upon it. As the sun stood in the constellation Abhijit, he looked at the fish in the water only once, and then pierced it with the arrow, knocking it to the ground. Someone read the purport?
Day,
Each
the
day the
sun
sun passes once through the lunar constellation Abhijit, marking the period most auspicious for victory. As pointed out by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, on this particular day, the Muhurta of Abhijit coincided with high noon, further emphasizing Lord Krishna's greatness by making the target all the more difficult to see.
Hare Krishna. Even more difficult. Yeah. Kettle drums resounded in the sky, and on the earth the people shouted, Jai, Jai, overjoyed demigods showered flowers. There is those whose hearts are broken because they wanted to enjoy what belongs to Krishna, all the other kings there. And there are those whose hearts are full of joy. We have to decide on which side we want to be. That's our choice. 28. Just then I walked into the ceremonial ground, the ankle bells of my feet gently tinkling. I was wearing new garments of the fine silk, tied with a belt, and I carried a brilliant necklace fashioned of gold and jewels. There was a shy smile on my face and a wreath of flowers in my hair. And someone read the purport, one line.
Srila Sridhara Swami states that Sri Lakshmana was so excited by remembering how she obtained the Supreme Lord that she forgot her natural shyness and went on to describe her own triumph.
Thank you. Triumph. I lifted my face, which was encircled by my abundant locks, and effulgent from the glow of my earrings reflected from my cheeks. Smiling coolly, I glanced about, then looking around at all the kings, I slowly placed the necklace on the shoulder of Murari, who had captured my heart. Just then, there were loud sounds of conchos and mridanga, pataha, beri and anaka drums, as well as other instruments. Men and women began to dance and singers began to sing. That 31. The leading kings there could not tolerate my having chosen the Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Draupadi. Burning with lust, they became quarrelsome. Someone can read the purport, one line.
Srila Srila Swami comments that the containment of lust led the kings to quarrel foolishly with the Lord, even after seeing his supreme power.
So, this is the power of lust. It completely bewilders the living entity. One cannot understand the Lord's position as the Supreme Lord. Text 32. The Lord then placed me on his chariot drawn by 4 most excellent horses. Donning his armor and readying his bow, Sharnya, he stood on the chariot, and there on the battleground he manifested his 4 arms. That so can someone read the purport?
Yes, with 2 of his 4 arms, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Lord Krishna embraced his bride, and with the other 2, he held his bow and arrows.
So the kings were very disturbed, and Krishna did not care at all. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, she became frightened because everyone was attacking. Therefore Krishna embraced her with 2 arms, and with the other 2 arms he held his bow and arrows. What a hero. Text 33, 34. 33. Daruka drove the Lord's gold-trimmed chariot as the kings looked on, O queens, like small animals helplessly watching a lion. The king pursued the Lord like village dogs chasing a lion. Some kings raised their bows, stationed themselves on the road, and stopped him as he passed by. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says, the kings followed behind to stop him like dogs following a lion. Some lifted their bows, Udrita Isha Asa, like dogs lifting up their tails, Asa. That's an interesting comment. These warriors were deluged by arrows shot from the Lord's bow, Sarnigam. Some of the kings fell on the battlefield with severed arms, legs, and necks. The rest gave up the fight and fled. The Lord of the Yadus then entered his capital city, Kushastali Dvarka, which is glorified in heaven and on earth. The city was elaborately decorated with flagpoles carrying banners that blocked the sun, and also with splendid archways. As Lord Krishna entered, he appeared like the sun god entering his abode. The abode of the sun is the western mountains, in the western mountains, where he sets each evening. 37. My father honored his friends, family, and in-laws with priceless clothing and jewelry, and with royal beds, thrones, and other furnishing. With devotion he presented a perfect, complete lord with a number of maidservants, bedecked with precious ornaments. Accompanying these maidservants were guards walking on foot and others riding elephant, chariot, and horses. He also gave the Lord extremely valuable weapons. Can someone read the purport?
The Supreme Lord is Purna, perfect and complete in himself. He requires nothing for his satisfaction. Knowing this, a pure devotee makes offerings to the Lord only out of love, bhaktitaha, with no expectation of material profit. And on his part, the Lord happily accepts even a small gift of flowers, tulsi leaves, and water when it has been offered in love.
So in this verse, Lakshmi's mood is expressed. That now, text 39. Thus, by renouncing all material association and practicing austere penances, we queens have all become personal maidservants of the self-satisfied Supreme Lord. So this is Rohini. She is the representative of the other queens, and she speaks in the last 3 verses. We are reading verse 40. Rohini Devi, speaking for the other queens, said, after killing Baumasura and his followers, the Lord found us in the demon's prison and could understand that we were the daughters of the kings, whom Bauma had defeated during his conquest of the earth. The Lord set us free, and because we had been constantly meditating upon his lotus feet, the source of liberation from material entanglement, he agreed to marry us, though every desire is already fulfilled. Can someone read the purport?
Rohini Devi was one of the 9 queens questioned by Draupadi in text 6 and 7, and thus it is assumed that she speaks here, representing the 16,099 other queens. Srila Prabhupada confirms this in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, thank you. Can someone also read, the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti?
We desire the food dust of He who, though full in his desires, free and accepted as his wives, the daughters of kings, knowing that they had been imprisoned by Bhauma when he defeated the kings while he conquered the earth. The verb Kamaya Mahe is 2 verses later. He married us because we were constantly remembering his lotus feet, which caused liberation from material life. Samsriti Vimoksham. For this reason, he freed us from the prison.
So, text the last 2 verses now. O saintly lady, we do not desire dominion over the earth, the sovereignty of the King of Heaven, and unlimited facility for enjoyment, mystic power, the position of Lord Brahma, immortality, or even attainment of the kingdom of God. We simply desire to carry on our heads the glorious dust of Lord Krishna's feet, enriched by the fragrance of kumkuma from his consort's bosom. This is 41, yeah. Can someone read the purport? Yeah, it's there. The complete purport is there.
Maharaj, the screen is not very clear with the start of the purport.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. The word Raj means to rule, and from it are derived the words Samrajyam, meaning rulership over the entire earth, and Swarajyam, meaning rulership over heaven. Bhojam comes from the verb bhuj, to enjoy, and thus refers to the capacity of enjoying whatever one desires. Virat is explained by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti as representing the phrase Vividham Virajate. One enjoys many kinds of opulence, and specifically including the 8 mystic perfections of anima and so on. An alternative explanation of these terms is given by Srila Sridhara Swami, who says that according to the Bhuvarcha Brahmana, these 4 terms designate the power of sovereignty over each of the 4 cardinal directions: Samrajya for the east, Bhojya for the south, Swarajya for the west, and Vairajya for the north. Lord Krishna's queens clearly state that they do not desire any of these powers, or even the positions of Brahma, liberation, or entrance into the kingdom of God. They simply want the dust from Sri Krishna's feet, which goddesses Sri herself worships. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti tells us that the goddess of fortune mentioned here is not Lakshmi, the consort of Narayana. After all, the Acharya explains, Goddess Lakshmi could not attain the direct association of Krishna, even after performing extended austerities. As Uddhava states, Nayam Shriyo Anga Unitanta Rathe Prasada 1047-60. Rather, the Sri referred to here is the supreme goddess of fortune, identified by the Brihad Gautamiya Tantra. Devi Krishna Mayi Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mayi Sarva Kanti Sammohini Para. The transcendental goddess Srimati Radharani is the direct counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna. She is the central figure of all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive personality of Godhead. She is the primeval, internal potency of the Lord.
Thanks. Now the last verse. We desire the same contact with the Supreme Lord's feet that the young women of Vraj, the cowherd boys, and even the aborigine Pulinda women desire. The touch of the touch of the dust he leaves on the plants and grass as he tends the cows. That interesting is that the queens are appearing to be less Interesting is that the gopis, they are appearing to be less fortunate than the queens. The gopis were in separation of Krishna. That they were not with him. But the queens had this association. The queens are getting what they want. They want to serve and they serve continuously, and the gopis are not getting what they want. But in this final verse, the truth is revealed. And it is revealed in the previous verse who the supreme goddess of fortune is. It is Srimati Radharani. But here they say that the topmost lovers of Krishna are the Gopikas. Here they say that they want the same contact with Krishna as the women of Braj have. Can someone read the last purport, please?
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti talk reminds us of the jealous rivalry that always existed between the queens of Dwarka and the gopis of Vraja. The gopis considered the sophisticated women of Dwarka the most serious threat to their hold on Sri Krishna. Confessing their anxiety to Uddhava, Kasmat Krishna ihayati prapta rajyo hata hita Narendra Kanya Udvahya. Why should Krishna come back here after winning a kingdom, killing his enemies and marrying the daughters of the kings? Rukmini and her seven chief co-wives considered themselves so fortunate in their relationship with Krishna as he appeared in Dwarka that they did not especially desire to see him as he is in Vrindavan. But the 16,000 lesser queens, after hearing Uddhava, but the 16,000 lesser queens, after hearing Uddhava describe Sri Radha's super excellent qualities, became attracted to touch the dust that falls from Krishna's feet onto the grass and plants of Vrindavan. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti indicates that some commentators gave this as the reason why, after the Maushala Leela, the 16,000 queens were stolen from Arjuna on the road by Lord Krishna himself in the disguise of 16,000 cowards, who then took them away to Gokula.
Yes. Now, to finish, I would like to go with you to Nectar of Devotion. I first get it on my screen here. Nectar of Devotion. And it's chapter 16, Spontaneous Devotion, further described that let's see. I can find it. Here. I bring it on the screen. Yeah, share. Here it is. Can someone read the first two paragraphs here of conjugal love?
Devotional service following in the footsteps of gopis of Vrindavan or the queens at Dwaraka is called devotional service in conjugal love. This devotional service in conjugal love can be divided into two categories. One is indirect conjugal love and the other direct. In both of these categories, one has to follow the particular gopi who is engaged in such service in Goloka Vrindavan. To be directly attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in conjugal love is technically called Keli. This Keli performance means to directly join with Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are other devotees. There are other devotees who do not wish direct contact with the Supreme Person, but who relish the conjugal love affair of the Lord with the gopis. Such devotees enjoy simply by hearing of the activities of the Lord with the gopis. This development of conjugal love can be possible only with those who are already engaged in following the regulative principles of devotional service, specifically in the worship of Radha and Krishna in the temple. Such devotees gradually develop a spontaneous love for the deity, and by hearing of the Lord's exchange of loving affairs with the gopis, they gradually become attracted to these pastimes. After this spontaneous attraction becomes highly developed, the devotee is placed in either of the above mentioned categories.
Yeah. One category. Can someone read also the next paragraph? This development of conjugal love.
This development of conjugal love for Krishna is not manifested in women only. The material body has nothing to do with spiritual loving affairs. Women may develop an attitude for becoming a friend of Krishna, and similarly, a man may develop the feature of becoming a gopi in Vrindavan. How a devotee in the form of a man can desire to become a gopi is stated in the Padma Purana as follows. In days gone by, there were many sages in Dandakaranya. Dandakaranya is the name of the forest where Lord Ramachandra lived after being banished by his father for 14 years. At that time, there were many advanced sages who were captivated by the beauty of Lord Ramachandra and who desired to become women in order to embrace him. Later on, these sages there, and they were born as gopis or girlfriends of Krishna. In this way, they attained the perfection of spiritual life.
Thank you. That's so we can understand a bit deeper this conjugal love and how it develops. But we have also another passage in 21. There you have Krishna's qualities, and you have the quality as determined. That, there he speaks also Krishna's and his relationship with the queens. If someone can read the first two paragraphs.
Any person who observes regulatory principles and fulfills his promise by practical activity is called determined. As far as the Lord's determination is concerned, there is an example in his dealings in the Harivamsha. This is in connection with the Lord Krishna's fighting the king of the heaven, Indra, who was forcibly deprived of the Parijata flower. Parijata is a kind of a lotus flower grown to the heavenly planets. Once Satyabhama, one of Krishna's queens, wanted that lotus flower, and Krishna promised to deliver it. But Indra refused to part with this Parijata flower. Therefore, there was a great fight with Krishna and the Pandavas on one side, and all of the demigods on the other. Ultimately, Krishna defeated all of them and took the Parijata flower, which he presented to his queen. So, in regarding to that occurrence, Krishna told Narada Muni, "My dear great sage of the demigods, now you can declare to the devotees in general, and to the non-devotees in particular, that in this matter of taking the Parijata flower, all the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Nagas, the demons, Rakshasas, the Yakshas, and the Panagas tried to defeat me, but none could make me break my promise to my queen. There is another promise by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita to the effect that his devotee will never be vanquished. So a sincere devotee who is always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord should know for certain that Krishna will never break his promise. He will always protect his devotees in every circumstance. Krishna showed.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I finished it a little too early. Thank you for reading. So my question to you is, what was the common element and what are the uncommon elements in the relationship with Krishna and his queens? That so, Mother Ema Gopi, yes?
common element was the gratitude they felt towards the Lord.
Yeah, gratitude, certainly. That
I cannot hear you clearly, Maharaj.
so that's true. That is a common element. Every devotee is full of gratitude for the Supreme Lord. Thank you, Mother Emma Gopi. That so next one, Mayapur Institute Zoom class. What's your name again?
Maharaj, I am Maharas Das.
Maharas. So
Yes,
Maharas Prabhu. What's your
Maharaj,
comment? Yes.
the common element was that all of them wanted to serve the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yes.
They were speaking in the mood of servitorship.
That's the
All
main
of them.
common element, yeah. They all only
And-
wanted to serve. That, and even birth after birth. Birth after birth. So it's pure devotional service. That, thank you, Maharaj Prabhu. Ram Krishna Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Actually, this chapter was so enlivening to us to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in more than 16,000 ways, because each of those queens represented their mood in which they actually approached the Supreme Lord. Something that was common in most of the cases was that Krishna had to really fight to get their hands. So each of the queen did present their cases in the way how Lord Krishna obtained them. That was one aspect which was common. But in few other cases, especially we saw the case of Lakshmana, in more than 22 verses, she explained gloriously about the way how the Lord actually victoriously took her in control of. And the uncommon thing that I could see in these different personalities, or the one more common thing that I could see in these personalities was they were all very much engaged in the service of the Lord, just as the maid servants. That is what their particular mood was. And something which was very striking to see the 16,000 queens represented by Rohini was something very uncommon to the others, wherein they specifically aspired for the dust of the Rajagopis, whereas the other principal 8 queens had a different kind of a desire of either touching the lotus feet of the Lord, or being at his presence, or giving him the comfort as he likes it, and so on. But the queens of those daughters of the kings were very different. So it again brought us to another aspect of bringing the Vraja Bhakti as the highest, which was established in the last 2 verses in this chapter. So more, it was very, very enlivening that above Krishna, the position of Srimati Radharani was placed as the most supremely worshipable personality. This is something very extraordinary in this chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is interesting here is that these 8 principal queens of Dwarka, Krishna, they are expansions of the gopis, factually. But the gopis are in separation, and they are always with Krishna. That's interesting. That so yes, that Maharaj Prabhu, please.
Maharaj, I observed another uncommon aspects among them is that some of them desired Krishna and some of them were desired by Krishna. For example, Jambavati and Satyabhama, they did not desire Krishna. In fact, they did not even know, Jambavati did not know who she was going to be married to. Whereas Rukmini had longing for Krishna before marriage. So that was also an uncommon aspect.
That's interesting. Yeah. But there is still this uncommon aspects. What can we learn from that? Bimla Prabhu, please.
I just wanted to comment on what Maharaj said about some devotees. Actually, Garud Puran, and it's finishing, it's giving uh, the previous life stories of all six queens except Rukmini and Satyabhama.
Okay.
And all these queens, they were like in previous lives, they were coveting Krishna in different forms. Life after life, they did many penance and austerities. And in this life, they came to have Krishna as their husbands. So it may not be so pronounced in the present life, but they were really working for it from their previous lifetimes.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Thank you. It seems their mood is they want to serve Krishna life after life, but still they have also each of them a specific mood. We have seen the mood of Lakshmi, very particular. So that means they have all a specific relationship with Krishna, and in a certain mood. We are part and parcels of Krishna. And Krishna wants us to connect with him, because we have all a specific relationship with Krishna. Although Krishna is complete, if it doesn't feel complete if we are not connected. He wants us to connect. And that's very, very interesting. Also, what I experienced by reading these chapters, they were fully under the protection of Krishna. And that's the only way to be happy for all of us. To be under Krishna's protection at every moment. Any further comment? But I didn't stop for a pause because this chapter is, we finished it, and so we can break now and continue tomorrow with chapter 84, I think. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you. His Holiness Bhakti Prabhupada Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.